On this episode of the Late Night Startup Show, we are speaking with Robynne Boyd, co-founder of the Goodgrief app, the social network for loss. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsors, RCR Video Marketing Group, an Atlanta-based, multifaceted video production company creating compelling content to fast forward your business, and Amazon UPCbarcodes.com. If you're new to uploading products on Amazon and realize you need barcodes, check out Amazon UPCbarcodes.com. They're the #1 source for UPC and EAN barcodes, and they're all GS1 certified. Also, you get a 10% discount on any purchase using the coupon code RCR Video. Let's get into the show. Robynne, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Late Night Startup Show. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing. I think it's something that's needed, and I haven't seen anything like it so far. But first, I want to start with how you got here. How did you end up coming up with the idea of developing Goodgrief?
Sure. Thank you, Randall. I'm excited to be here. Goodgrief is an app that is a labor of love. It came from a very personal experience. About a couple of years ago, the woman I created this with, Kim and I, we were both going through our own types of personal grief and loss, and a mutual friend connected us just by text. And she lives in New York, I live here in Atlanta, and we started texting about what it was like to go through grief. Kim had woken up one morning and her partner had passed away. Which is, it's not only having the carpet ripped out from under you in life, it's the floor. Mm-hmm. My mom passed away from metastatic breast cancer. Oh. And at the same time, I became a single mom. So we started writing about what it meant to have sadness, what it meant to be shocked, what it meant to just try to dig ourselves out of that hole. And in the process, we realized that it was so helpful having someone else understand what it was like to go through the process. She didn't try to fix anything. I didn't try to fix anything. And so we realized we were onto something. Mm-hmm. And partly because it was also someone who wasn't in our intimate circle, I think there was this ability to just put the veil down and be very honest. Mm-hmm. And so we used that as a springboard. And one day we said, I think we should make this for other people. It doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we've done. We've created an app that connects people one-on-one who are going through very hard situations so that they can privately talk with other people.
I think it's interesting what you said, that sometimes it's harder to talk to your friends or family, those that are close to you. Sometimes when you're talking to a stranger, you can just let down all those walls. Is that kind of the idea with Goodgrief? Is, it connects you to someone with a similar loss, or is it just kind of anyone? What's the connection? How does that algorithm look within the app?
Sure. So you can do it a couple ways. So first of all, the app is username based. So you can be completely private if you want. So you don't have to have your name out there in the world. And yes, you can, once you go into the app, you create a profile based on who you've lost, how you've lost them, when you've lost them. And then you enter into the app where you see a list of all the people who are there. You can then filter it further if you so choose. And you could find, like in my situation, I could find women who have lost a parent to illness if I wanted to narrow it. You can narrow it by gender, location, what type of loss they experienced, religion. You can narrow it incredibly tightly so you can find people in your exact situation.
Okay. So from you and Kim suffering from these losses to the idea of developing Goodgrief, about how long was that window of time?
So it took about 1 year from idea to launch.
And you guys are steadily communicating through that year?
Yeah. And we talk on the phone. We always try to start first with our lives so that like that friendship remains at the heart of this app. And it started with a lot of research. Like you were saying, you haven't really seen anything else like this out there. We wanted to first see if this was a new idea.
Yeah.
And we didn't really find anything that was, that allowed people to chat privately.
Yeah.
That really protected the user. There's some amazing grief groups out there, but we believe that there's an ownership that happens when it's one-on-one. You feel personal responsibility for someone else's emotions. Yeah. So it kind of gets rid of either people not responding or the harsh comments that can happen on the internet. Yeah. So that's kind of how we've done it.
I think one of the amazing things about today's time and landscape of entrepreneurship is you can start a business with someone you've never met. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, this idea would have just been completely outrageous if you would have told anyone, hey, I'm going to start a business with someone from New York. I've never met them in person. We just chat over the phone or online. So what made you so comfortable to do that? I know you guys talked through, suffering these tragedies and these losses, but when it came to business, I think everyone knows that, sometimes it's hard to trust even those closest to you in business. We see family businesses fail all the time. So what gave you the comfort level of saying, let's do this together, even though we've never met?
I think it was that there was this bigger purpose behind the app. That was the idea that made us both feel comfortable. We both really believed in this idea that something like this didn't exist. It was worth making. And I think something about Kim and I had gone through this process of a friendship in reverse. We started with big heavies, and then I was like, what do you do as for a living? And that was kind of backwards. So the trust developed very early on, and our ability to talk a lot of things over very openly. So we've kind of used that as the way to go about bringing the business into reality. But yes, we couldn't do it without technology. It's like, that's the very foundation of what makes us work. We text, we do video meetings. I mean, every aspect of this company is virtual and through technology. Do
you plan on keeping it that way? Will you guys never meet? Is that part of the thing now, or?
I think him and I would love to meet at some time. I think we'll wait for a special occasion.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think the best businesses are grown out of, the bigger picture, the bigger purpose, like you said, solving the problem. And it's weird how this kind of accidentally happened. What would you say to any other entrepreneur looking that is maybe constantly thinking, okay, I got to find a problem to solve. I got to find a problem to solve and build a business around that. What would you say to how did you think, business wise, this is the problem to solve during this moment? Is it something that you constantly search out for and look for, or how did you just accidentally stumble upon it?
Well, once we came upon the idea, we did a whole lot of research about what else existed out there. Kim's a teacher, a high school science teacher. She would say, do your homework. Yeah. That's like her first thing. So we did a lot of research on different apps that existed for grief, what they were doing. We looked at different grief groups. We looked at different grief websites. So we wanted to make sure that what we were offering was not in competition with what was out there, but was additional. So it was going to be supportive. And then we wanted to make sure that we did it better. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm developing an app myself that's in the film world, but when I came up with the idea, I had so many people say, building an app is so expensive and it's so much work. And you and Kim still have, your day jobs. This is your part-time side hustle, if you will. And, I think it's amazing that you're taking the time for the bigger purpose to say, no matter what, we're going to figure it out. So from what I understand, neither one of you really have the app building background. So, how did you get over that hurdle and through that, or how do you feel comfortable building an app, even though it's not really your expertise?
I think kind of like a lot of big journeys in life, things go one step at a time. And that's kind of how we've approached this. So we were lucky enough to find two guys who make apps, and they're great. They have a company called Winona Partners. Mm-hmm. And we worked very closely with them as we made it. Okay. And so it was always a discussion. It was fun. Mm-hmm. We've kind of kept people around us who are fun, who get the vision. It's not too serious because it's a pretty serious topic. Mm-hmm. So Kim and I like to keep it light. We call this the silver lining of what everyone has gone through. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just one step at a time.
Yeah. What about marketing? How are you getting Goodgrief out there? Is it a pure social media play, or what's your marketing campaign look like?
Sure. Yeah, we definitely use social media. We advertise on Facebook. We have an Instagram account. We have a Twitter account. You can use social media and you can kind of hone in on places that have had whether you see like violence happening in a certain neighborhood, you can actually hone your social media advertising to those areas. It's something we've just started thinking about. That's definitely new for us. But yeah, you can also use social media to focus your ads to think about who the populations are that you're trying to target. We also, Kim and I both like to chat with people. And so we have started connecting with all the communities. They're large communities connected to both the grief world and the technology world. So whether it's hospice, counselors, so it's hospice, counselors, chaplains, grief groups that meet in person, those kind of people. So we're both doing a whole social media advertising campaign, and then we also face-to-face. Yeah.
I would assume going to the hospice and the counselors is maybe a little easier to get your name out there, just because, you know, if someone is going through such a tragic loss, I'm just curious if someone would say, okay, I need someone to talk to. Let me see if there's an app for that. But if there is a counselor or someone that can just, you know, the word of mouth marketing, say, hey, check this out. I heard about this. This is a good opportunity. Have you noticed any struggles or any obstacles in marketing it? Like I say, because people going through such a tragedy, are they really looking for, you know, an app to help them through it?
Yeah, I think probably in the early days, their first thought is not app. Mm-hmm. But what we noticed is the moment we launched, people started getting on the app before we had actually done a huge advertising campaign. So when people just search for grief in the App Store, this is what they find. Mm-hmm. We also are noticing as people get on the app, there are certain generations. I think people look for information in different places. So I think the younger generations definitely think about apps when they think about ways of communicating. Mm-hmm. So when you see a whole slew of 20-year-olds getting onto the app, it makes sense that they would find it. I think maybe that splits a little so that someone in their 60s might be more likely to find it through a counselor.
Yeah. So what's been the biggest hurdle so far then? Because I'm trying to find with other, you know, local business owners and entrepreneurs, it's hard. You know, building any business is hard. And to me, this particular business seems like you are having to navigate a lot of emotion, which is probably the most difficult thing to navigate being an entrepreneur, not only in yourself, but your business is navigating the emotion of your client base as well. So what's been the biggest struggle so far? You launched a month ago. You've already had 200 people sign up for the app, which is incredible. So what's the biggest hurdle you've suffered so far?
Basically, almost everything in this app and the app making process and the world we've entered is new for both Kim and I. So we are completely outside of our wheelhouse, at least in the way it's put together. And so every step, it's figuring out how to go about it. It's definitely not always graceful, I guess. Figuring out how two single moms who have other jobs fit a marketing campaign into the day is it's hard, you know, but we're slowly ironing out wrinkles in that. It helps if we chat a lot. I think communication is really important. And we're still in the early days of the app, so we'll see.
Which is a really good place to be, in my opinion, because then you're able to stay grounded in the bigger picture. And how important is that? I mean, like you said, this isn't your wheelhouse, this isn't your expertise, but I would assume through navigating the process of building this business, you and Kim, probably more than a lot of entrepreneurs, just because of suffering such tragedy and this idea being born out of that, you have this natural ability to stay grounded to the bigger picture, to the bigger purpose. So how important is that to other entrepreneurs and business owners to kind of find your North Star? And as you're going through the day-to-day and making these day-to-day decisions, always keeping that North Star in focus.
I like the way you said that. I think having like a guiding light is probably key. I think it does help you keep the big picture. It reminds you why you're doing this. I think you always have to come back to that, but then you also have to be incredibly organized. Kim and I have learned to schedule our lives and schedule how this fits into our lives pretty well. That's a part of it, just learning to schedule it. And I also think for us, it's fun. Like, it's really fun. We're having a great old time making this. I think part of the fun is that it isn't our background. And so it's like, just each day having to use our brains in a new way and figure out ideas in a new way. It's a fun process.
That's awesome. Well, like you said, scheduling is super important. And for anyone in your and Kim's position with still working your day jobs, scheduling is even more so important. The last couple of people I've talked with, they're doing their business from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. or they're working it around their family schedule, their work schedule. And so what does scheduling your day look like? And you have a co-founder in New York that even adds to that chaos. So how do you go about scheduling your day to make sure that you're setting your business and yourself up for success? What would your advice be to kind of make that process a little easier?
I would suggest, Kim and I have weekly meetings, so where we always set our tasks for the week. So we know going ahead what each person has to do. So then we each have a set of things we have to get done, and then we check back in at the end of the week and make sure that those have been accomplished. Our schedules are slightly different. They kind of complement each other. She has a early morning to mid-afternoon day job. I work from home. So I can kind of slot things in slightly differently and just end up doing it in the evening. And so I think it's just constantly checking in and then making sure you have a task list, know what has to be done, and getting that done. Yeah,
writing down those goals. And I think there's a big difference between goals, expectations, and task. A lot of people will say, I want to increase my sales or the people signing up on the app. I want to increase that by 20% this year. When really, that's the overall goal, but writing down a task is massively different. The task or the roadblocks and the stepping stones to get you there.
Exactly. How do you get there?
Yeah, exactly. So I think everything, and that goes back to the North Star. Everything has to be reverse engineered back to that. And you got to find the way to navigate and the roadmap to that North Star. I think that Goodgrief is something that is definitely needed. But have you seen any difficulty in convincing people to pay for this type of service? How would you, communicate that? Why is it worth it? If just speaking from, if I am looking at that app, at what point do I say, okay, this is worth the monthly subscription fee to pay for this?
So first, you do get a week free so that you can test out the app. And so it's all hands clear. You get to see what it's like. You don't put a credit card down at first. So it's a completely free way to see what it can do. Kim and I both believe that there are millions of people out there in the world who get grief and who can be an amazing support system for other people who get it. And I think when people get the taste of what that conversation is like, that it's safe, that someone else understands it, we think that they will use the app, that it's going to be like this aha moment for them. It'll be a moment of relief. And so they will get on it. We've also tried to make the app really reasonable, reasonably priced. So it is $4.99 a month once you have signed up for the subscription. And so how we say it is it's for less than a latte.
Yeah, that's true. You know, the reason I asked that question is because I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to just the kind of discomfort in, you know, how much do I charge? What do I bill? What should my rate be? How much should my service or product be, and all that? And I think it goes to the core purpose, like we keep saying, the North Star, just knowing that if you stay focused on that and figure out the why behind your business. And like you said, you're offering, you know, a week or two for free and allowing people to kind of get the taste of it. And once you prove that you're good enough and that the business is something that is needed, well, then the pricing structure should kind of fall in place by itself. So, you know, is there anything else that you want to add to Goodgrief or to business, to entrepreneurs, to leaders, to whoever that in your early stages of building this app, what has been the main takeaway from you, or the main point of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs?
I think it takes a lot of little steps to make something happen. And I think there's so many moments where Kim and I have fumbled and we've wondered how to get beyond a certain point. And you just have to keep going. You don't have to get it right in every single moment. And I think that's part of figuring out the process. I think it's just keeping going.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned Kim again, and it made me think about this, is a lot of new entrepreneurs are in partnerships with other people. So how do you keep that partnership healthy? Because I'm sure there's been times to where you guys have just wanted to, you know, it's pure confrontation, but
I just can't do it because she's in New York. Maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah. It's how do you keep that relationship healthy and focused on the core purpose?
Yeah, well, we are definitely different personalities. That's part of the fun. We also think in different ways. So sometimes we do have very divergent ideas of how something should go, but we've agreed on all the big ideas. We have to agree. And then Kim is just better at certain things. She is naturally skilled at doing the social media blasting and all of that. So we've also delegated responsibilities and allow each other to each take on those responsibilities. I think we also have found like checking in with each other at the personal level helps us keep that North Star, as you've called it, at the heart of what we're doing. And then we get to business.
Okay. So how important is it to kind of write down, Kim's good at this, Robynne's good at this, let's stay in our lane until those big decisions come about? Did you guys literally sit down and say, okay, you should handle this, and write it down? Or has it just kind of developed out of building the business?
It's become more obvious as to just what she's more skilled at. Like it's kind of happened organically, watching what she's skilled at, what she likes to do. Same, it happens to be complementary. And so we've slowly been splitting up the responsibilities more and more, I think.
Okay. You know, here's one thing that I ask everybody that I interview is what's the 5-year plan for Goodgrief? Where do you see you and Kim and Goodgrief in 5 years?
We want Goodgrief to be a additional tool for people in the world of grief. It's available 24 hours a day. So if it's 3 a.m. and you're feeling sad, it's a tool you can use. You can actually get on an app and talk to someone anytime. We would also love to be a place that people think about when they hear Goodgrief or they think about grief. This is a go-to place to find comfort, support, and understanding. So the app will literally, you can choose who you lost, and then it gives a list of options, whether it's parent, spouse, child, friend, other, sibling. It gives all these options. So they're broad, but they're narrowed for people. And then the type of losses, it's all the big heavies. It's suicide, miscarriage, illness, accident, divorce, other. There's always other.
Okay, so you're narrowing it down by the type of loss, the relationship with the person that was lost, whether it's mom, dad, and so on and so forth. What about beyond that? Is there even more filters as far as the person that you get connected to chat back and forth with?
Yeah, one more for creating your profile is its time frame. So we have done 0 to 1 year. So like kind of the acute stage of grief.
Okay.
Then we've done 1 to 5 years and 5+. Because if you chat with someone if you're in the acute stage and someone else is, it will be an intensely emotional exchange probably, which is a nice communication to have, to realize that you're not going crazy, you're not abnormal. But if you talk to someone 10 years out, they're going to tell you that you're going to be okay. And it's a totally different conversation happening. And then once you can further filter it, yes, you can do it by gender, religion, age, location, type of loss, time frame. So you can have all different types of conversations going on.
So it really connects you with an individual that's going through a very similar circumstance.
Yeah, you can narrow it almost as much as you want.
Yeah. So Goodgrief is an app in the App Store and the Google Play Store, and it has native messaging services, but it's also a website that has native messaging service. But can you talk on the phone as well? Is there like a actual conversation phone service included?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
We're always open to ideas. Right now it is in-app texting. So it's one-on-one communication and photo sharing.
And I assume what's kind of holding that back is just the massive technology that has to go into that to be able to provide that into the service. Is that the case, or is it just trying to figure out the best way to move the app forward?
I think this is 1.0. And so I think we're going to see how people respond to the app and what people need. I think we're both open to how it might grow and change. And so perhaps that's ahead.
Yeah.
We're not sure. But I think mostly people these days text.
Yeah,
people
true.
get scared to pick up a phone. People get lazy. I don't like picking up a phone anymore as much. So I think texting has become so.
And even going through such a tragedy and a hard time, it's probably a little easier to communicate texting. I've found that about myself, certain things that I've gone through, I can text a whole book about it. But if I were to talk about it, I shut down a little more. So texting to me is probably the healthier way to actually get it off your chest. I think it's important to note too that, Goodgrief isn't defining loss by just death or those unexpected. It's divorce, or it could even be custody of a child, or I don't want to define that for you, but I think it's important to say that it's not just for people who have suffered death. So maybe speak a little into that.
Sure.
How is the loss defined?
So we have tried to we've narrowed the idea of grief down to kind of death of is how we thought of it. So it is death of a loved one or death of a marriage. So that's kind of how, or long relationship. Yeah. So we narrowed it because otherwise the grief can get very large and broad.
Yeah, because either way, I guess there's an emotional emptiness that comes out of these losses, whether it is literally death or death of a marriage.
We think at heart, grief is grief. And I think once you've experienced some version of that and you hear someone else who's experienced a version of it, it's very similar, even if the details around it are different.
Cool. Well, last thing is I want to give our audience a way to find you. You personally, Goodgrief, social media, website. So
yeah, thank you. So Goodgrief app is available on Google Play, on the App Store for iPhones, and on the web. It is also, we have a Goodgrief app on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, guys, I hope you check out Goodgrief and follow along. I think it's something that everyone can use, especially in today's time. There's such unexpected tragedy that happens, and something like this is just absolutely needed, especially in the way that we use technology these days. Why not use it for a great purpose and cause to help people get through these sufferings? Hope you enjoyed the episode. Please subscribe to the podcast and to the YouTube channel to check out future episodes as they come out. Thank you so much.